Ciao, jewelry making friends. My name is Joey Balestrieri. Welcome to my work table and welcome to my channel. I have just summer delight on my work table today. I recently acquired this beautiful strand of Peruvian opals, and they are in this pale like conch shell pink, and they're kind of a rustic like coin bead sort of, and there's a few different sizes, some small, some large, lots of varying colors, and I just love Peruvian opal. It's one of my favorite gemstones, so I am planning to use this and some natural seashells that I found myself on the beach, and I'm going to do two pendants, and I'm going to be mixing in some of this fabulous items from Purity Beads. And for those of you who have not heard me speak of this before, Purity Beads is a company that designs a lot of their chains and beads and findings in-house, and most everything has a brass base metal, so it's a huge step up in quality, and then the plating, and then an e-coating that makes it anti-tarnish. And on top of the quality, the beauty of what they have is just amazing. I found them at a bead show about a year ago, and I am the first YouTuber, I am proud to say, to bring Purity Beads to YouTube. They did not have an affiliate program until I talked to them at the show, and so my viewers can use the link in the description box and my code and get a discount from your first order. I'm really proud of that and really excited because I have personally used their products and love them. So I'm really proud to bring such beautiful things to my audience. So these are my two chains that I recently purchased from them at the bead show, and I was debating if I wanted to make it two necklaces that are as they are, where I'm going to create some kind of an actual necklace design, or if I want to do two separate pendants with larger bales that can be interchanged, and then I could add to them, and I'm kind of leaning towards that. I think that's going to be my plan. So I'm going to use this one. I cut it at around 30 inches, and this one is around 26 inches, maybe 24. And so they'll be layering necklaces. So I can actually, when the summer is over and I'm moving into like maybe check glass fluted beads and that kind of thing, I can put my pendants, take my summer and my seashell pendants off, and that's what I think I'm going to do. So what else I have here is some toggle clasps that I picked up at the show from Purity Beads. They are just absolutely beautiful. Oh, actually the bracelets that I'm wearing, these little curved bar beads, are also from Purity Beads. And let's see, I'll show you. I have some finished bracelets here. These are the two toggles. This is one of them that I got from Purity Beads. And let's see, here's the other one. And so I may choose these again. I'm not actually sure. I may choose these again to create my two chains, but those are the two toggles, and they have many more, but I just think they are so beautiful. I also have a little collection of gold filled lobster claw clasps, and I may be using those. And I have some other gold filled findings here. So I'll make my pendants first and then decide how I'm going to finish off the necklaces. So let me just share with you, I started with a few seashells from my collection, and I thought I might just make a few pendants and then choose the two that I like the best, because what happens to me is shells, the natural shells, are just so beautiful. It's so hard to choose just one, and each one that I look at, I think of ways that I can wrap my wire, or places that I can lay my wire into the natural elements of a shell, and so I tend to go from one to the next. I really love this little shell with my Peruvian opal, and I'll show you some of my tricks. The reason that this looks like it just came out of the water is because it has 2 coats of nail lacquer on it. So when a shell is cleaned and dried, you know, that shine, that excitement that we see when we pick it up on the beach is typically goes away when it gets dry and dull. So this is one that is unlacquered, and I just kind of decide piece by piece if it's going to get a coating of lacquer. This one looks really dry, so if I end up using this one, it will for sure get a coating. Now, I also pulled out this little tiny sand dollar, and believe it or not, I put a coating of the clear nail lacquer on it, and it just soaked right in. It didn't really brighten it up at all. And I was kind of playing, since sand dollars are so fragile, I was kind of playing with these little filigree things that I have that it's just an Amazon product, and I can link it below if you're interested in playing. But I was just looking at maybe using a little E6000 and gluing the sand dollar onto a filigree and then making a pendant that way. So that was one of my options. And then I did this one. I was literally just playing with a seashell and some 22 gauge medium tempered German style wire, and I just did this funky little wire wrap. And there's really, it would be a great pendant because it looks great on both sides all the way around. And so I'll show you kind of what I'm thinking. And I also picked up this little piece of coral on the beach, and I'm thinking to do a really creative arts and crafts like wire on that, and then I'll choose what is going to be for my 2 pendants for my necklaces. So let me just show you really quickly. When I go to the beach, I love to walk on the beach and pick up seashells. So this is my stash. And when I come home, I clean and wash and dry everything, and then I kind of sort them by size or by shell if I can. So there's that one. This is fragments. And I do have another video that I have done where I show how I like to wire wrap even broken pieces of shell. And let's see, set these aside just to show you. So these are just, you know, kind of my sorting method. So when I sit down to do a project like this, my things are pretty organized. So I can look and see, you know, what kind of shell I'm thinking to work with. And, you know, this is just many, many hours of walking on the beach and collecting, and I just love them. I even have some really beautiful ones too, and I think sometimes when I'm vacationing, I will go in a shell shop and even purchase some seashells that divers have brought up, you know, for my jewelry when I want a natural element. So that is my beginning of my project, and I'm going to start with showing you that I used a little E6000 glue with this gorgeous shell, and I took one of my little bumpy spacers from Purity Beads with the anti-tarnish coating, and then I took another, I have these little tiny brass spacers, and I just glued that on the end just to give it a finished look. And now I just have to decide if I want to glue a bead cap on the top or if I want to start a wire wrap and wrap up, which is kind of what's in my head. And this one I really love. I think this is going to end up on my necklace. And then one of the other little things that I like to do is fit a bead cap onto a seashell. So there was that as an option. You know, you will need a little bit of glue. I tend to go between gel Loctite super glue and E6000 when I'm doing a project like this. And I even, on my beautiful chain, these are solid links, so in order to get the length that I wanted, I had to make a cut. So I am even saving the link that I cut, and I was thinking that that might be really pretty to add in. Just close it up, but just to add in on my seashell. So this is where I am going with things. I will start with this little piece of 22 gauge medium tempered German style wire. This is Beadalon, and I think that I am going to you know, sometimes when I am playing with wire like this the way that I did on this, it's really hard for me to say what my plan is because I don't actually have a plan. I look for the natural path of the wire. I also look for the way I would want my pendant to hang. So like on this one, I really like seeing this part of the seashell. So I think I would like this to be the front. And I think what I'm going to do, this has been sitting up for about 2 hours. I did this ahead of time so that I, can put a little bit of pressure. But if you're going to try this project and you're going to use shells that you've purchased or that you've found or purchased, make sure you remember that it's natural and some of them are quite fragile. So that's why I'm using 22 gauge wire, and you could even go down to 24, but I want to make a little bail. So, I'm using the thickest gauge possible, and I'm pretty gentle. I've played with my seashells doing this a lot. So what I'm going to do is just get a little start of a wrap right here at the bottom. I don't know if you saw what I did. And like I said, I don't actually have a plan except that I had in my head that I wanted to wire wrap up in a spiral this beautiful shell. So I think I'm going to start like that and just hold it with my thumb, and just don't skip the step of warming your wire because it really helps you to get it to do what you want it to do. And I think I'm just going to do a little spiral, just following those natural lines. That is so pretty. And then let's see, I want a nice secure bail, so let me come around to the back. I don't like that last turn. So that's the nice thing if you're playing with your natural elements and your wire, is you can always unwrap, like if you've done a wrap and it's not speaking to you. And one other thing, like right here, I'll just show you, I have this little set of, it's a file and reamer set that I got from Amazon. So if the ocean hasn't tumbled things perfectly smooth, I don't want anything sharp, so I will take and just, do a little bit of smoothing, just help the ocean out a little bit. And a lot of times what I do with this is get my wire in position, and I think that is probably what I'm going to do on this one. Get my wire kind of in a position where I can feed it up through a bead cap and use my E6000 glue. Let's see how that works. See if it will. This is really a matter of playing with your supplies. Like bead cap, where is it? Like, well, in this case, this little bumpy spacer fit perfectly on the tip of that shell. In this case, these are very malleable, so I was able to kind of bend this bead cap to fit over this. So it's a little bit of, fitting things together, a little bit of a puzzle. And so again, I have to be really careful not to break my seashell as I maneuver my wire and my bead cap, but that looks really good. So if I get my E6000, pull that up and get some E6000 glue right there. I leave myself extra wire. As you see, there's a lot more than I'm going to need, but I leave myself extra wire because I don't always know what I'm going to do. This is a very organic, free form, kind of playing with natural elements, and I may want to spiral back down or do a bail that has 2 or 3 circumference, rounds of the wire. So I always leave myself a little bit extra. And let's see. I will also always have a little piece of wire or a toothpick off to the side of my work table, just so that I can kind of take away any extra glue or anything that is not going to dry nicely. And the other thing, the gluing, if you glue findings onto natural elements, it does make them a bit stronger. It stabilizes them. I have a tiny little piece of shell that came off. It's okay. It's under the wire there. So I'm going to just pull this so that that bead cap is sitting the way that I want it and set it aside to dry. Just make sure, because once the E6000 sets up, I won't be able to make any adjustments. Look at it that way. That looks great. I'm also leaving this tail here because when this is dry, I may decide that I want to do a spiral, maybe laying up on the shell, maybe hanging down. I may cut it away, but I'm going to leave myself the option. So this is one option with my Peruvian opal. And then I'm going to take another piece of that same 22 gauge wire. And my idea for this is to clean up my work mat a little bit. My idea for this is to kind of lay the wire across the face of the shell as if it were a fan. So I'm just going to smooth, make sure this wire is really smooth. In fact, I'm going to get my nylon jaw pliers here because there's a little space here. And once I lay this across my seashell, I probably won't be able to make any smoothing or adjustments without putting stress on my seashell. I'm going to start by encasing this little shell that I've lacquered with this 22 gauge wire. And if you're going to do this and you're not great at wire working or maybe newer at it, you might want to choose a shell that has a little bit deeper grooves in it or places to rest your wire. I hope that I'll be able to do this one. It's a little bit smaller than I normally work with, but my pendant idea uses one of these coin beads and a shell dangling from it. So I'm going to give it a go. And I'm going to start by just kind of folding this little piece of 22 gauge wire in half, just getting like a little bend in it. And I am just going to try to encase this in this wire. I want it to be secure, of course. So I'm going to start right about here and just pinch this really tight up against the shell. So just my advice, if you're going to attempt this, is just to go slowly. And I wish I could be more specific about exactly what to do, but literally every time that I wire wrap a seashell, my technique is different because they're natural elements, and I look for natural places for wire to rest, and I also look for the natural path of the wire. So I have this one going around, and I'm going to come, let's see, I'm going to come over right here and draw this up. And again, I'm just using the warmth and the pressure from my finger to really hug that wire. And I would really like to get a 3. I would really like to get 3, but you know, it may not be possible. Let's see. Maybe I have to be happy with 2 on this one, or maybe not. Let me try. The nice thing with doing this is you can always unwrap if you need to. And I shorted myself just a little bit, but all I need to do is really lock this wire in place. I'm going just give this a little bit of pressure. I don't want to break my shell, but I do want it to be pretty tight and hugging. And I did short myself. Ideally, I would have a longer tail of wire here. So let me see if I am able to just lock this into place. It's 22 gauge wire, so it's pretty soft. Looks like I was able to do it. So from here, I can either stack my oval, my Peruvian opal right on top, and I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna have to, let's see, I'm gonna move this wire just a little bit. I'm pretty happy with that. And what I think I'm gonna do, since I have such a nice tail left over, I think I'm going to make a little spiral right here just to go on top of where my wires are crossing over. So let me grab a hold of this, and from here, this is a regular wire wrapped loop. I'm just going to do a 90-degree bend and then place my round nose plier in there and just do a wire wrapped loop. And I'm just going to wrap right down. You could do a messy wrap here if you like that look. I tend to do my wraps more neatly. And I'm just going to come down and bring this around to the front. And I think I'm going to make a little spiral right there, and that will be too long of a spiral, so let me trim that away. Don't want it to be too big. And just get a little circle going. And just push it against my finger, making short little motions with my hands. I do want to be careful not to do any damage to my shell still. Just coil that right there, and I'll just push it into place. It's really pretty. Just pull it down. Kind of center it. That is so pretty. Not too difficult. As I said, every one of these is different. Now, before I go on to the next step that I want to do, I'm just going to show you what I did to this shell. I did it in advance. The lacquer that's on there, I did front and back, and I did it in advance so it would be dry so that I could do this part on camera. But I just bought at the dollar store this clear lacquer. Now, sometimes if you've watched any of my other videos, you've probably seen me use this Permalac coating to lacquer things to keep them from tarnishing, and to put a, really this dries clear. You don't really see it. It doesn't really put a shine on things. It just keeps it from tarnishing. And I don't know if you can see how very thin it is, as opposed to the nail lacquer is really thick. And this does put a shine on things. So this one has 2 coats. This little shell has 2 coats. I don't know if you can see. And I'm just going to show you what I did. Let me grab a little junk. I have one of these little junk trays, and it is like easier than polishing your nails because you don't have to stay inside the lines at all. But again, I don't know if the camera is showing you how dull this little shell is. It's chalky even, and it's so beautiful when you pick up a shell and it's wet and it's in the water, and then it, because it looks glossy and shiny, and then when it comes out of the water and starts to dry, it gets really dull. So I usually just use my pliers, or sometimes I even just put it down in the dish and just get a good coat and just make sure that there's not anything too thick or dripping off like that. Just make sure it's a good even coat. And if I don't think that it's shiny enough or that I got a good enough coat, I'll just set it down and let it dry and go on to some other part of my project and then come back to it. But it is that simple. So now nail lacquer is lacquer, and look, it just revives it and makes it so pretty. So I'm just going to get it in my little dish. It also dries pretty quickly. And so we'll let that dry and go on to another part of the project. So the next thing I want to do is choose 2 of these little Peruvian opals. This is pretty set up, so I can do whatever I want as far as wrapping here, and this one is done. So I think those are going to be my 2 pendants. And I have been sitting here as I was working on this, and I think that I want, let's see, I need a thick one. I'm going to do a herringbone wrap, so I think this one will be perfect for that. Get that one. And the other one that I was looking at is this one. So I'm choosing these 2. This one is a little bit thicker. I don't know if you can see the thickness compared to this one. So I think I'm going to do the herringbone wrap on one of them and leave one of them just plain wire wrapped. So I just love this bead. I love how rustic it is, and they're all just beautiful. Well, that one's pretty too. It's a little bit hard to choose. Really is a little bit hard to choose. That one's pretty thick too. That one could be a good herringbone. Maybe that one. It's hard to choose. They're all so beautiful. Okay, I am going to thread my Peruvian opal onto the 22 gauge wire around in the middle, and then I'm going to come in with my 24 gauge wire and just get a couple of wraps going. I'm going to have to set it down on my mat and just pull it tight. It's not going to be tight at first. Just, you know, it's just the nature of it. Just like with the wire wrapping on the shell, it is a little bit tricky to get it started, but once you get it started, then it's a little bit easier. Okay. And now I'm going to get my bead pushed right up to the, everything is still sliding, but that's okay. It won't for very long. In fact, sometimes I will take my pliers and just give that wire, especially this fine gauge wire, a little squeeze just to make it grab onto my core wire. And so now I am going to hold everything as best I can with my thumb and bring this wire down one side of the bead and around to the front, and then I'm going to wrap to the back and back around to the front, and I want it to match this side, so I'm going to do that again so that there's 2 wraps on this end, the same that there are on the other end. And like I say, normally I would have a thicker core wire, so this is bending a little bit, but I think I can do this. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and do I want to remove that or make a spiral? Maybe I'll pull this around to the front and let it hang out. This little tail wire, you could cut this off and be done, but I'm going to let it hang out because I may want to do something else with it. So I'm going to repeat that. Just hug this wire around the side of the bead, coming back up to the top of the bead, and I want to pull it on top of this core wire, and I'm just going to switch hands, and then I'm going to wrap it to the back and back around to the front side. So it looks like that. And I'm just going to switch hands again and do the same thing. I'm going to hug it down the side, but this time, you can always make little adjustments with your pliers too. Just pull that forward a bit. So this time, when I go down the side, I'm going to put this wire behind the first wire that I wrapped. And just hold on to it with my fingers. This little wire that I have hanging out is in my way. And I'm going to bring it to the core wire on the front and wrap to the back and back around to the front. So because this little wire is in my way, I just had the idea of saving that in case I want to do a spiral on the front of this bead, but it was in my way a little bit, so I'm just going to tighten up my coil before I continue. Can always pause and do this. Okay, and continue in that way. I'm going to hug the side of the bead, but I am going behind the wire that's already there, and just rotate your work if you need to. When you get to this side, this wire lays on top of the core wire, and just wrap to the back and back around to the front. And I'm going to just do the same thing, just gently push that wire. You can use your fingernail. And I'm going to continue. I have a little bit more. I think I have enough to do 3 on each side, so I'm going to go behind the wraps that are already there. When I come to the other end, I'm always on top of the core wire, and I'm going to wrap to the back and back around to the front. And this will be my last one because I want 3 on each side. So I'm just going to go down the side of the bead behind the wraps that I've already done, and the same thing over the top, bring it around. And I like to cut it off in the back, so I'm just going to pull that wire around to the back and snip it back there. And then my idea with my little tail of wire, just going to pull it right here to the front and do another little spiral. And I think I will, let's see, I think I'll trim it just a tiny bit. Just remove a little bit of length so it will be a very small spiral. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did on the other little seashell. Just get it going. It's so easy with 24 gauge wire because it is so soft. And just push it, just make gentle little turns and just push it against my finger if I need to. This goes like butter. Okay, and I'm going to lay it on the front of that little opal bead. Isn't that pretty? Look at that. So that's what you can do with a tail of wire. And then this is what the herringbone looks like. I have 3 little wraps on each side. That's the back. The back is equally as lovely. I'm going to do wire wrapped loops on both ends just because this is such fine gauge wire. And I also think that I'm going to use a jump ring between the two, so the orientation of my loop is going to be exactly the same as my shell, so at least on the bottom. So let's bring in our pliers and get a hold, and this is just a normal wire wrapped loop. I'm just going to bend that 90 degrees and put my plier in there and make this little loop nice and neat. You could do a messy wrap here if you like it. I tend to make them really neat. I just like the look. And then I'm just going to wrap neatly and tightly right down to where my herringbone wrap starts, And I always try to trim my wire off in the back of my piece, so nobody knows where it stops and starts when they look at my piece. And then I just want to give that a little pressure to make sure it's tucked, nothing is sharp. Okay, so that's going to be the part that connects here. And I'm going to do the same thing here, but I want to make this, let's see, I could always use a large jump ring. In fact, that's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to do another loop exactly the same size as this, and I'm going to use one of these large gold-filled jump rings to attach this to the chain. So, executive decision. Okay, and do the exact same thing that I did on the other end. I like to center my loops. Get my other pliers to help me. Do the exact same thing. 3 wraps right down to where my herringbone wrap began. And cut off in the back. That is so beautiful. This would make a lovely pair of earrings, but I am going to connect these two. And I think I'm going to use these gold-filled jump rings. I am going to use the largest size that I have for the bail, and I'm going to use the tiniest size that I have for connecting these two pieces. I absolutely love these little, it's an Amazon find. They are gold-filled, diamond textured jump rings, and they have so much sparkle. They are so beautiful. Is that one smaller? No, same size. They are so beautiful, and they just add so much to a little piece like this. Okay, let's see. Just gonna connect, connect, connect. This is the exciting part. Connect my pieces. Wow, what a stunning pendant. I love, love, love the way that turned out. Now let me see which chain I'm going to be able to put that one on. Does my jump ring fit? It does. It fits through here. But with that large jump ring, I could actually switch it around. I could put it on my thinner chain too, because it's delicate enough that I could actually switch it. But for now, I'll leave it on that one and we'll finish this one. So on this one, I think that I am going to do this one more simply. I wonder how I'll feel if I just string it right on. Let me see. Let me straighten this out a little bit. I was planning to do this one articulated and do it as a separate component, but before I make that decision, I'm just going to thread this down. Try this and try a little, see what it looks like. Bead on top matches what I did at the bottom, and maybe I'm not going to do 2 separate components. Maybe I'm just going to leave that one long and dramatic like that. I really like that. That is beautiful. Okay, before I do this, I am going to get my Permalac coating, because this little bead cap that I glued with the E6000 is just fashion jewelry, and I'm putting such high quality metals, my E-coated purity beads chains, and such high quality metals. My wire has an anti-tarnish coating, so before I add anything else on, I am going to give this a coating of this Permalac I can link this below. Many of you, if you've been on my channel, know that I don't always show it in my videos, but when I'm all finished making a piece, I always take a moment to put this little coating on any of the base metal findings or fashion jewelry findings that I've worked with. That's what it looks like. It's really thin. It dries literally in your hand. And I just love knowing that like if this bead cap were to tarnish in 4 months or 6 months, you know, the rest of the piece can look beautiful, but there's no way to repair that without cutting it apart. So I love knowing that I did that little extra step. And now I can go back and add on my purity beads. Little spacers don't need a coating because they already come with one. And I just love working this way. So then I just have to decide what is going to be the front and the back. Initially, I really liked seeing that part, but I'm kind of liking this as my front, maybe just like that. I'm going to use my bail making plier, and let me see. I'm just checking to see, because I know that this size jump ring fits nicely on this chain. So I'm just looking to see if I need to do this very largest one on this bail making plier. And it looks like I can use that one and do my bail with that. So let me get back to my front and back situation. I can always adjust it before I finish making. So now I'm going to take and put my bail making plier in there. Straighten that out just a little bit. And I am going to wrap this wire around this. It's a stepped bail making plier, so I'm using the second to the largest step. And I'm just going to wrap my wire around that and rotate out of my way, and I'm going to wrap it again. And you know, I might even wrap it 3 times. Just, you have to like keep repositioning to get the plier out of your way when you're going to do a double or a triple wrap. But let's see. Let me see how it's looking. Let's see. I think a double will be okay. So if you can see what I did, I've just done a double wrap with this stepped bail making plier, and now I'm just going to get a hold of this and do my wire wraps. Just make sure everything is together. And let's see, my front is right there. So I'm going to grab a hold of this and just wrap down to my little Peruvian opal. And since I have such a nice tail, once again, I think I might do another spiral. So let me see. Get this facing the way I want it. I like to do these double bails or triple when I have really fine gauge wire, if it's possible. Let's see. Before I lock this into place, I just want to get exactly the position that I like. Now I'm going to trim this tail a little bit because I don't want that big of a spiral. And I'm going to do the same thing that I have been doing. And just push that little spiral into place. I want to pull this wire over just a little bit. What a pretty little pendant. And I think I am going to just trim this tail off. I was considering doing another spiral at the bottom of this one, but I think it has enough going on. And just gently, definitely at this point, don't want to be too aggressive and damage my seashell. And so this little pendant is ready for this chain. And again, I did a really large bail on this, so I could actually wear this on either chain. But look how beautiful that is. It looks like a little seashell person. And I'm just going to try it just to check out my bail on this other chain, and yes, it goes in nicely. So I could even wear this on pink leather. I have these two beautiful pendants that I can do interchangeably on my gold chains or pink leather or anything that I want. So I just have to decide on my clasps. I will put those on, and I think I'm going to be using these tiny little gold filled jump rings, but I'll put them on and I'll put some pictures up at the end of the video so that you can see the two necklaces completely finished and on their chains. But aren't these the most stunning pendants? And I mean, just absolutely beautiful. They just speak to me. Of course, I love pink and gold, but this soft, like conch shell pink is just gorgeous. So I thought I would show you a couple of other things really quickly. As I said, a seashell like this might be much easier to wire wrap than the one that I did, because your wire will rest nicely on the grooves. And the secret to that is really just encasing the seashell. So wrap your wire up, you know, that way before you start wrapping. But like on a piece of coral like this, I was looking at this, and it may be a little bit difficult to secure the wire if you do this as a vertical drop pendant. But if you turn it this way, you can actually wrap your wire around. And so let me grab some more of the 22 gauge wire. And I'm going to be a little bit generous because, again, it's very freeform and I don't really know how it's going to turn out or how much wire I'm going to need. But I'm just going to grab, like, first of all, I'll decide when I look at a natural element like this, I'll decide if I want that to be the top or that to be the bottom. And I think I like it that way. And let's see, this side is a little bit prettier. I can see the dimension of the coral a little bit, so I think that's going to be my front. And I'm going to do basically the same thing, just lay that wire in there and make that first fold that just begins to grab onto the piece, and just get it as tight as possible, and just pulling as tight as I can. And I'm just going to make some wraps. I'll leave that one up there and start on the other wire. Sometimes I leave one short and do all my wrapping with the second wire. It just, each piece will kind of suggest what to do. And let's see, would I want more than that? I'm going to grab hold of these because I really want it to be tight, and pull it as tight as I can to my piece of coral. And let me get this one going toward the back. I don't even have to trim that, I can tuck it. And so, like, I have the beginning of another little natural element pendant here. I could string beads on. I could go ahead and do a wire wrapped loop here. And the other thing I really like to do, both sides are actually really pretty, but it's pretty tight. But you can take your pliers and put these little bends, which to me always look like lightning bolts, which is, you know, perfect. It's like a, you know, you could name the piece "The Storm on the Beach." But I'll just like give my wire a little bend, and that just grab it in different intervals and do that little bend. And when you do that, it's tightened down really well against your piece, and like it's really secure now. And I'll come down here, and you can do front and back, but you get like these little zigzags or lightning bolts, so it's just another look. And it is, I mean, this piece is super secure. It is not going anywhere. So that is just one of the things that I do with my natural elements. And I really encourage you to get out a couple of different gauges of wire. These Peruvian opals really have small holes, but I got that one on there. But isn't that beautiful? So, you know, I really encourage you to pick up some beautiful fragments on the beach, some found objects, some broken shells. Look for shells that have cool architecture or a nice groove in them, or a natural hole that the ocean has done for you. And just play. Get out a couple gauges of wire and just play with wrapping those elements with the wire. It is very I mean, I live in Florida, so when I go to Anna Maria Island or Venice Beach, there are boutiques everywhere, and these things are quite expensive on the coast of Florida in so many of the shops. But no one will ever have the same piece, because the ocean started the art for you and then the artist finished it. So it is just a lovely, like, summer melody. It's so beautiful. I just love adding these beautiful natural elements in with my beautiful supplies. And so I will leave links to Purity beads and to any of the other items that I have shown you today in my video. As I said, if you check the description box, I will leave links to, like, I have a whole box of these beautiful little filigree elements in silver, antique bronze, and gold, and that's an Amazon find. And that would be a great idea if you have something that's really delicate, or you don't have a natural place to make a connector. You could glue it right on to the filigree. And I'll leave links to the beautiful Purity Beads website with my discount code. So use my link for getting to the website and my code and get a discount from your first order. And while you're there, check out their beautiful chains. They have the most amazing beads. I have recently done 2 other videos using the things that I got from Purity Beads. This one is a summer style bangle set, and that's Purity Beads. And then I did some bracelet and earring sets in a video, so I can link those below as well. And I just hope everyone has a wonderful summer, that you have fun. I hope everyone gets to have a little walk in the park or on the beach and maybe pick up something natural and free that you can use in your jewelry making. And I thank you so much for watching, for choosing my video today. I would love to have pictures of your little furry faced helpers that are around your work tables, or feathered helpers, or helpers with gills, whatever you have. I love animals and I love nature, and you know, I guess maybe that's why this kind of a project just makes me so happy. Plus it's just so delicate and feminine, and just my favorite colors in the world. So I'm super happy with the way these necklaces or these pendants came out. And again, I'll put some pictures up at the end of the video. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd really appreciate it. It really helps support my work. And I will see you all in the next video. Hope everyone's safe and well. Ciao, jewelry making friends.